Listen carefully. Not every danger comes with noise. Some dangers speak softly, smile politely, and stand very close to you. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who attacks you. It is the one who slowly convinces you to abandon yourself. If someone enters your life and peace leaves, if clarity turns into confusion, if strength turns into self-doubt, this is not bad luck. This is not fate. This is a warning. And today you will learn how to recognize it before it costs you everything. When you spend time with the right people, something very simple happens. You feel more like yourself. Your breath becomes deeper. Your thoughts become clearer. Even silence feels safe. But when you are dealing with a human devil, the opposite occurs. And this is how the danger begins quietly, without announcement. Notice this carefully. It is not your body that becomes tired first. You can sleep 8 hours and still feel exhausted after speaking to them. You can do nothing physically demanding and yet feel completely depleted. This is because what is being drained is not your energy, but your spirit. Something inside you is being pulled slowly, consistently, until you no longer recognize your own inner state. After every interaction, you feel heavier. You replay conversations in your mind, wondering what you said wrong, what you should have done differently, why the atmosphere shifted so suddenly. There is a lingering sense of confusion, as if clarity was stolen from you. This confusion is not accidental. It is the result of being around someone whose presence creates disorder instead of peace. Pay attention to this. Peace is a natural state. It does not need to be earned. It is what remains when there is no threat. When someone repeatedly enters your life and peace leaves, that is information, not emotion, not imagination. Information. Your inner system is responding to something misaligned. A human devil does not raise you, they reduce you. Your confidence becomes quieter. Your boundaries begin to soften. You start explaining yourself more than before. You start justifying behavior that once would have felt unacceptable. This is how spiritual erosion works. Not through force, but through gradual wearing down. You may notice that before meeting them, your day was stable. After leaving them, your mood collapses. Your chest feels tight. Your patience disappears. You become irritable with people who have done nothing to you. This is not who you are. This is residue. You are carrying something that was placed on you. And the most dangerous part is this. You begin to believe the problem is you. You think you are too sensitive, too reactive, too weak. But strength does not feel like constant inner conflict. Growth does not feel like self-erasure. Love does not feel like spiritual fatigue. The body can recover quickly, the mind can rest, but the spirit, when drained repeatedly, begins to lose direction. You stop trusting yourself. You stop listening to your inner voice. And once that voice is quiet, manipulation becomes easy. Understand this clearly. Anyone who consistently leaves you feeling smaller, heavier, and less peaceful is not neutral in your life. They are taking more than they give. And anything that feeds on your spirit is not meant to stay close to you. The next sign is more subtle, and because it is subtle, it is often ignored for far too long. When you are dealing with a human devil, truth does not disappear all at once. It is slowly reshaped until you no longer recognize it. They do not need to lie openly. In fact, they rarely do. What they do instead is far more dangerous. They distort reality just enough to make you doubt yourself. Notice how conversations with them leave you unsettled, even when nothing obvious went wrong. You remember events one way, and they remember them another. Not dramatically different, just slightly altered. A word here, a tone there, a detail missing. At first, you correct them. Then it happens again and again. Eventually, you stop correcting. You start questioning your own memory instead. This is how clarity is dismantled. Not through aggression, but through repetition. Each small distortion creates uncertainty. And when uncertainty becomes familiar, control becomes possible. You may hear phrases that sound reasonable, even calm. That's not what I meant. You're overthinking. You're taking it too personally. These statements are not always false, but in the wrong hands, they become tools. Over time, you begin filtering your experiences through their interpretation instead of your own perception. Pay attention to how often you feel the need to explain yourself, how often you backtrack, how often you soften your words to avoid conflict that never should have existed. When truth is stable, it does not require constant defense. When truth is clear, it stands on its own. A human devil creates fog. In fog, you move slowly, you hesitate, you ask for permission, and the more you hesitate, the more dependent you become on the one who claims to see clearly. This is not guidance. This is dominance disguised as concern. You may also notice that when you finally gain clarity, when something becomes obvious to you, they immediately shift the conversation. They change the subject. They bring up the past. They focus on your reaction instead of their behavior. This is deliberate. Clarity is a threat to someone who survives on confusion. Understand this. Healthy people want to be understood. Manipulative people want to be obeyed. One seeks clarity. The other seeks advantage. When you are around someone who consistently leaves you unsure of what is real, unsure of what was said, unsure of what you felt, that is not a communication issue. That is a power issue. Your inner compass is being interfered with. Truth, when respected, makes you stronger. It grounds you. It gives you direction. But when truth is twisted, you begin outsourcing your judgment. And once you give someone authority over your perception, you have already surrendered your freedom. If you must doubt yourself to keep the peace is already false. The third sign reveals itself in moments of emotion, especially yours. When you are dealing with a human devil, your feelings are not met with care or understanding. They are used. Watch closely how they respond when you are upset, frustrated, or vulnerable. Instead of calming the situation, something in them becomes more focused, more alert, almost energized. Your anger sharpens their attention. Your tears slow them down, but not with compassion, with calculation. The more emotional you become, the more controlled they appear. This imbalance is not strength on their part, it is feeding. They draw power from your reaction, and once you see this, you can no longer unsee it. You may notice that arguments with them never truly resolve. They stretch on, looping endlessly, until you are exhausted. You explain yourself again and again, hoping to be understood. They listen, but not to connect. They listen to find leverage. Every emotional word you offer becomes material they will later use against you. This is why you leave these interactions drained and ashamed. Even when you were justified, you feel exposed as if you revealed too much. You regret being honest. This regret trains you to suppress yourself. And suppression is exactly what they want. Pay attention to how often you are pushed into reacting. Small comments, subtle provocations, a dismissive look, a sarcastic tone. These are not accidents, they are hooks. Once you react, the focus shifts from their behavior to your response. Suddenly, you are the problem. You are too angry, too sensitive, too emotional. This pattern teaches you to stay quiet to maintain peace. But silence does not bring peace here. It brings compliance. The less you react, the more they escalate, because without your emotional output, they are starving. A healthy person de-escalates when emotions rise. A human devil escalates while appearing calm. They speak slowly. They lower their voice. They appear reasonable. And in contrast, you look unstable. This contrast is intentional. It positions them as the authority and you as the disorder. Over time, you begin monitoring your emotions constantly. You walk on eggshells. You rehearse conversations before they happen. You numb yourself to avoid giving them anything to feed on. This constant self-surveillance erodes your sense of freedom. Understand this clearly. Emotions are not weakness, they are signals. They are information. But when someone repeatedly provokes emotional responses and then punishes you for having them, they are not seeking resolution. They are seeking control. You do not need to win these exchanges. You need to step out of them. A person who feeds on your emotional reactions will never be satisfied because what they consume is not the issue. It is the process. When your pain becomes their fuel, distance becomes your protection. The fourth sign becomes clear the moment responsibility enters the room. When you are dealing with a human devil, accountability never survives the conversation. It dissolves, redirects, or disappears entirely. No matter what happens, they are never truly at fault. Someone else caused it. circumstances forced it, you misunderstood it, the story always bends away from them. At first, this can be confusing because they may appear self-aware. They may say things like, "I'm not perfect," or "I've made mistakes." But listen closely. These statements cost them nothing. They are vague, distant, and carefully worded. There is no ownership of specific harm, no sincere effort to repair what was broken. Responsibility for them is theoretical, not lived. When a problem arises, watch how quickly the focus shifts. Instead of addressing their actions, they examine your reaction. Instead of repairing damage, they analyze your tone. Instead of apologizing, they explain. Explanation becomes a shield. And behind that shield, nothing ever changes. You may notice that every serious conversation ends with you feeling guilty. You came to express a concern, yet somehow you leave apologizing. This reversal is not accidental. It trains you to associate speaking up with punishment. Over time, you stop raising issues, not because they are resolved, but because the cost is too high. A human devil must always preserve a certain image of themselves. Being wrong threatens that image. Taking responsibility would require humility, and humility would collapse the structure they depend on. So blame must be placed somewhere else, on stress, on your sensitivity, on the past, on anyone but them. Pay attention to patterns. The same conflicts repeat, yet no growth follows. Promises are made in moments of tension, then quietly forgotten. Boundaries are acknowledged verbally and violated practically. Words flow easily, but behavior remains unchanged. This is how responsibility is avoided while appearing cooperative. You may also notice how they position themselves as the victim. Even when confronted with clear evidence, they suffer more than anyone else. Their pain becomes the center of the conversation. Suddenly, you are comforting the very person who caused the harm. This emotional reversal keeps you stuck in a cycle of caretaking instead of clarity. Responsibility is not about shame, it is about alignment. When a person can say, "I did this and I will correct it," trust becomes possible. When they cannot, trust erodes, no matter how convincing their words may sound. Understand this deeply. Where there is no responsibility, there is no safety. Growth cannot occur. Repair cannot happen. And connection becomes an illusion sustained only by your willingness to carry what is not yours. If they are never wrong, you will always pay the price. The fifth sign reveals itself through boundaries, or accurately, through the absence of respect for them. When you are dealing with the human devil, your limits are not seen as healthy or necessary. They are treated as obstacles. Every boundary you set is questioned, tested, or quietly ignored. And yet, at the same time, loyalty is demanded from you without hesitation. At first, the violations may seem small, a message late at night that expects an immediate response, a personal question you are not ready to answer, a request that makes you uncomfortable, but is framed as harmless. When you hesitate, you are told you are being distant, cold, or ungrateful. Slowly, your no begins to feel like an offense. What makes this dangerous is the imbalance. They reserve the right to privacy, space, and autonomy, but your boundaries are negotiable. When you ask for time, you are accused of pulling away. When you ask for space, you are told you are being unfair. Your limits are interpreted as rejection, not self-respect. This creates confusion, because healthy connection does not punish boundaries. It responds to them with understanding. A human devil responds with pressure, emotional pressure, guilt, silent withdrawal, or sudden anger. The message becomes clear: comply or suffer the consequences. You may notice that loyalty is defined very narrowly. Loyalty means agreeing. Loyalty means protecting their image. Loyalty means staying quiet when something feels wrong. Questioning becomes betrayal. Distance becomes disobedience. And your individuality slowly dissolves under the weight of expectation. Over time, you begin adjusting yourself preemptively. You respond faster than you want to. You share more than you feel safe sharing. You cancel your own needs to avoid tension. This is not commitment. This is conditioning. Pay attention to how difficult it feels to say no. Notice the anxiety that rises when you assert yourself. This anxiety did not come from nowhere. It was taught, it was reinforced through repeated consequences. And the longer this continues, the more you forget that boundaries are not walls, they are doors. They define where respect begins. A human devil wants access without accountability. They want closeness without responsibility. They want your loyalty without offering safety in return. This is not connection, this is control wearing the mask of intimacy. Understand this clearly. Anyone who requires you to abandon your boundaries to prove your loyalty does not want your devotion. They want your submission. Where your boundaries are not respected, you must not remain. The final sign does not come from words or behavior. It comes from something much quieter, and because it is quiet, it is all often ignored. Your intuition speaks before your mind can explain. It does not argue, it does not shout, it simply signals. And when you are dealing with a human devil, this signal appears again and again. You may feel it in your body first, a tightness in the chest, a heaviness in the stomach, a subtle urge to pull back even when everything seems fine on the surface. Nothing obvious is wrong, yet something inside you is alert. This is not fear, this is awareness. At first you may dismiss it. You tell yourself you're overthinking. You search for logical explanations. You focus on their good moments, their charm, their potential. But intuition does not operate on potential. It responds to patterns. And patterns are already forming, even if you are not ready to name them. Notice how often you feel uneasy before seeing them, not after something bad happens. Notice how relief appears when they are absent. These are not random sensations. Your system is tracking consistency. It recognizes when something repeatedly places you in a state of tension. A human devil depends on your disconnection from this inner voice. That is why confusion, emotional exhaustion, boundary erosion, and responsibility avoidance all work together. Each one pulls you further away from your own guidance. And the further you drift, the easier you are to influence. You may also notice that when you try to listen to your intuition, doubt rushes in immediately. Their voice echoes in your mind. Their explanations feel louder than your own knowing. This is the final layer of control, not just influencing your choices, but replacing your inner authority with theirs. Intuition is not dramatic. It does not tell stories. It simply says, this is not safe, or this is not right. When ignored, it grows quieter. When honored, it grows stronger. And once it goes silent, you begin relying entirely on external validation to make decisions that should come from within. Understand this deeply. Your intuition exists to protect your integrity, not your comfort. It will disrupt attachments that are harmful. It will challenge illusions that feel familiar. And it will warn you long before damage becomes visible. Many people stay in destructive relationships not because they cannot see the truth, but because they do not trust themselves enough to act on it. They wait for proof. They wait for permission. They wait for certainty. But intuition does not wait. It invites. The moment you choose to listen, clarity begins to return. Your body relaxes. Your mind steadies. You remember who you were before the confusion started. This remembering is not weakness. It is recovery. When your inner voice tells you to leave, do not argue with it. Walk.